with another episode of the Open Heart Collective. I've got my brother. I like this guy already. We've talked only a handful of times, but we're family already.
Small amount.
Welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
I have a feeling this is going to be a really compelling conversation today. Not to say that the last couple haven't been, but everybody's bringing a different energy to this conversation so far. So let's. That's the plan. Just gonna. Okay. Now that we're.
Turn that down. Okay. There we go. I think we are good now.
All right. So as long as we're not hearing any weird, nasty echoes.
My dog is like begging for attention right now.
But yeah, so as long as you guys can hear us well, again, as with every episode here, we're broadcasting live both on Facebook as well as on Instagram. So, Broderick, introduce yourself, my brother.
Hello, I'm Brodie on Instagram. I am a 31-year-old. I am a 31-year-old. Living in, I would say, rural South Carolina, but living in a small town in South Carolina, and I work as an architect by day and a influencer by night.
A by night influencer. I like the sound of that.
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you guys who haven't tuned into one of these streams before, this is a conversation, or this is a content series that started because I started to notice a negative trend, and this negative trend was that we don't talk about mental health. We're not having these conversations regularly enough. We're definitely not having them in an open way, and we need to be having these conversations because what I've noticed is that we always have these types of discussions after something happens, after we lose a famous celebrity, after a school shooting, after any sort of negative event is when we start to have this type of conversation. So we're really proactive and very on the offense in so many other aspects of our life. So why in the hell are we not doing that same thing when it comes to our own mental health?
Yeah.
And then the mental health of everybody around us, because I mean, if you're doing well as a human being, I'm doing well as a human being, my boy Carter over here is doing well as a human being, like we're all doing what we need to do.
Exactly.
And and if we're all able to lift each other up and inspire and allow people to actually be make mistakes and be human, like this is life. This is what we need to do. So with no further ado, get in and tell me your story a little bit. Let's dive in and yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, this is pretty big, obviously, to, I guess, talk about this on a stage that's not just your counselor. But really for me, it's been a struggle that I guess I've kind of dealt with for a long time. Just really didn't know per se what it was. Just because, like you said, I mean, mental health and say anxiety and depression are the big names in that is not really, it's not really talked about. It's more of a, okay, well, let's see what medication can we put you on or whatever, you know, just kind of knowing that there is something wrong, but diagnosing it and trying to possibly be preventative with it is not something that happens. And so as I was growing up, I mean, I was trying to figure out things as far as to why I was per se super emotional. And I mean, it was more of a point of being more like a huge worry wart. And really with that, it's obviously more of an anxiety feeling that you tend to worry a lot more. And it just got to a point where recently, and I know I kind of just super fast forwarded, but
don't worry, we have an entire, we've got a solid 55 minutes left, so we can
go back
around a little bit.
Yeah, so I moved to this town, Spartanburg, about 3.5 years ago. And I came from Charlotte. So I went from a busy city to a city that was it's still growing. Like
Did I lose you?
I don't think so.
Your screen's dark on mine.
Uh-oh. Which one, the Facebook or Instagram?
Yep.
Facebook?
Facebook is dark.
Let me.
Sorry, guys, if we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here.
Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're back.
That's weird. Because it didn't show anything. Everything was fine. Technology. So, like I was saying before, I moved from a larger city to a smaller city, and I had a lot of friends in Charlotte to a point where I was constantly able to be distracted, and in a good way. But when I moved to the smaller town, I had to find new friends. And so I had a lot of time to myself, which, as we know, especially when you're dealing with, say, anxiety or depression, like being by yourself sometimes is not the easiest thing. But being around a lot of people it masks the feeling, and you don't really pay it attention because you're constantly in the mix and in the move. So you never really worry about yourself. And so once I moved to a place where it forced me to kind of slow down and be by myself, I ended up, again, I had known I had something going on, but it got to a point now where it's like, okay, well, you're 30, 31, and it's time to kind of figure out what you need to do about it. And the stigma of going to, say, get a psychiatrist or going to get a counselor is almost negative in today's society. It's almost seen as, okay, well, you're the wounded animal. We're just going to exclude you from the group, and we're going to move on because we're okay.
Right.
And it's not the case. And so taking that big step to actually get a counselor and start actually opening up to someone that knows you no better than, the guy down the street, but trusting that just even talking about it will help assist with a lot of things. And so I've been seeing, a counselor. I see her once a month now, but when it first started, it was like twice a month almost. And, it's helped tremendously. And then one of the things that I thought about as well was that, maybe I need to speak to my physician about potential medical help. I'm definitely one of the people that tries to stay away from prescription drugs as much as possible. And I try to do more natural. If there's a mushroom or something that helps, I'd rather do that than to do. I do some ancient Chinese medicine before I will do prescription drugs, just because side effects are crazy these days. And so I went to a doctor and talked to him, and I was like, hey, I've been going to this specialist or this psychiatrist for about a year now, and it is helping, but I feel like I need a little bit more help. Right. And so they prescribed me the drug that is basically, he explained to me, and I have been reading up on rumination and things of that nature, is that we, depending on what you believe in, regardless, there used to be an extreme need for what creates anxiety and depression. There used to be an extreme need for that. But in today's world that we live in, we're not worried about, for the most part, we're not worried about getting chased by something, or we're not worried about, the storm that we see off in the distance, and are we going to be able to find shelter in a set amount of time before it comes. So like those things that we have never really lessened per se. Like they're still built into our persons, and we still deal with that, but everybody obviously deals with it differently. And again, society is in some ways so negative towards it that people realize that they have that issue, but speaking up about it is, like I said, it's seen as, you're not one of the one of society because you have this issue.
Well, and especially, I mean, being a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times when you were growing up, because you and I'm 3 years older than you, how many times growing up did your family say, you're a guy, you're not supposed to cry, or you're not supposed to be emotional, you're not supposed to be, because that's how our parents, and more kind of more directly, our fathers were raised.
Mm-hmm.
We were raised to not be emotional. We were raised to be almost robotic as men, because it was a sign of weakness to show any emotion, let alone stress. I mean, the only emotion that was even remotely allowed was anger.
Yeah.
Which is odd, because it's one of the worst emotions out there, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why should they allow us, or can say, hey, you can be angry, but you can't be sad?
Yeah.
It seems a little bit backwards to me, but thankfully I grew up with parents who were overly empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that at a very young age. Like, I'm crying regardless of whether people say it's okay or not.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, I can only imagine, especially because, I mean, you grew up in the South, right?
Yeah.
Like, different dynamics too. I mean, that's again why I think having many guests from all over the world and all over the states and all over from various walks of life is so compelling, because there's a resonant underlying tone, is especially this generation. We weren't always raised to be emotionally out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, it's kind of, and that was one thing too. So I still am, like, it was a lot more back in college and stuff like that, but I was kind of seen as that person of the group that everybody came to kind of dump. And dump is a bad word, but
no, they came to you so that because they knew you were a safe place.
Yeah, and they basically would talk to me about everything, and it's almost like I would leave there with so much weight on my shoulders. I'm like, okay, so how am I gonna carry their problem, even though I really didn't have to, but how am I going to carry their problem and then also deal with mine? And then when it came to a point where you're like, all right, well, now I want to kind of deal with my problem because it's becoming a bigger issue, you almost didn't want to go out and reach out to anybody else, because in a way you knew what it felt like for those people to come to you and, you know, tell you what's going on. And you're just like, I don't want to put that burden on anybody else. Like, I just want to let me try to deal with it. So there were days where, you know, I'd go weeks and weeks, and then there'd be one day I'd just be exhausted, like emotionally just out of it, just because of the fact that I've held on to my stuff for so long, and then also helped other people deal with that. And, you know, that, even though it really doesn't sound like mental health, I mean, that's a big part of it, because you feel like you're like, okay, how am I supposed to be strong for everybody else if I am showing a sign of weakness? And like you said, that's the way society is. It's just like I said, being a man, you want to be strong, or that's what they say you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to that point where you're just like I am about to just break down, like, I just want to go hide in a hole so nobody sees it. And so saying that you have something going on and you're finally able to kind of put a finger on it, it's very peaceful almost, because you know that, okay, well, you know, now I may deal with this, but I know what's important. You know, what is this situation that I'm worried about going to change my next 30 minutes of life?
Right. Or your next hour, your next day, your next week. Like, that thing, that what you just mentioned about being that sounding board for everybody else.
Yeah.
Something that completely resonated with me, because I've been there. I've been that person that was always the go-to guy when something was going on. when it was just a little bit too much to handle. Everybody just came to me.
Yeah.
And now, then it was obnoxious, to be honest. Like, because it's like, I've got so much of my own stuff to do. Why dump it on me? But now, like, I say, bring it on. Like, if you are one of these people, and I say this, I'm going to say this early into the video because we'll see how many people actually watch the entirety of the 60-minute session. Ladies, gentlemen, all binary folks, like everybody, every human on the face of this planet, if you are struggling, get help.
Yeah.
And mental health has got such this negative stigma, like you can't talk about it, right? Because, I mean, oh, hey, like you just can't talk about it. Because for whatever the reason, like we can make excuses all day long, but the real honest reason why we're not able to talk about it is because we're too fucking afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the same thing that got brought up in a podcast interview that I did recently about what the fear of failure versus the fear of success. And you can't be fearful of either one of those two things, right? You're not fearful of the success because the success is just the climb. And success is relative to everybody. Like, what's successful to me may not be successful to you and vice versa. And what's fearful or what's failure to you and failure to me is different. Like, so we don't fear the one or the other. We fear the in-between.
Yeah.
We fear, like Vaynerchuk says, we fear other people's point of view on our failure or other people's point of view on our success. And fear is one of those things that drives mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where we're not, this is how we've gotten to be this point, right?
Yeah.
We're in a culture and an era that allows us to communicate and build relationships and fucking talk to people that we couldn't talk to 15 years ago. Like, we would not be having this conversation 15 years ago, right? Like, because we didn't have this technology. I mean, we could be having this conversation, but it would be over a telephone that was attached to a wall somewhere, not duly broadcasting over the internet. Like, we can do amazing things because of this technology, yet we're squandering it. We're squandering our ability to truly connect with people because we've been told from the generation before, right? Oh, you can't build meaningful relationships on social media. That Facebook thing, it's just a fad. Instagram, what the hell is that? Snapchat, that's just for dick pics, right? Like, people don't think that you can actually build meaningful, impactful relationships through this, or let alone have an impact on somebody because of one word that you say or one smile in a video. Like, and I completely got off tangent, but hey, but mental health, it means so many different things.
Yeah.
Right? We can wrap this up with depression, anxiety, stress, anorexia, bulimia, alcoholism. Like, all of these subjects come back. I mean, we're not even talking this really scary stuff, which is levels of psychosis and bipolar. I mean, all of those things are incredibly challenging to deal with. And they're even more so challenging to deal with as a person on the outside, right? I've been around a lot of people who have dealt with manic depressive or have had manic depressive tendencies. And you just never know who you're going to get from one day to the next.
Yeah.
And let's amplify that when we're building businesses, or when we're a solo musician or a podcast host or somebody who's trying to build a brand and either has no team or a small team. And all of a sudden it's just amplified even more because now guess what? This got brought up with Chrysanthi the other night, but you're wearing 27,000 different hats.
Yeah.
And because we put this unbearable weight on our shoulders, and honestly, and I posted this on Instagram last night, like, this entrepreneurship isn't easy or glamorous. Like, it's made out to be because of social media, But a lot of it, and I'm sure you can attest to this, a lot of it's sitting in a room and wondering what the fuck you're doing. Like, so are you still hearing the echo, Daniel?
I'm going to turn down my headphones just to make sure, but
Because mine is not bad. Hold on. All right, so what's this echo like? Oh, yeah, that's bad.
uh-oh. Wonder where it's coming from. My headphones.
All right. So I've completely moved my headphones. Daniel, thank you for letting me know that the echo is bad. Anybody else, if you're getting any audio errors or glitches, please let me know. I've moved my headphones away from my second machine or my second device. So let me know if you're still getting it. Carter, can you step out and listen? Like, go to the other side and see if you're hearing it still. By the way, welcome, Daniel. Thank you for joining us tonight. Inevitably, I'm going to figure out how to avoid any echo nastiness because it's got these conversations have to be done on both formats.
Excuse any barking in case my dog.
This show's so much better without the echo. So, are you hearing the echo now or not? Like that's what I'm really curious to know, if the echo is still being heard. Because I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, me either.
But, I mean, I'm hearing an echo, but that's only because my guy Carter's listening to it in the other room. Yes, not as bad. You know what? Audio latency, we'll blame it on that.
Possibly. Yeah. And I'm trying to pick up where you left off. We were talking about, obviously, being the bearers of information from other people. Oh, being entrepreneurial and dealing with the responsibility that comes with it. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest to that a little bit. Thank you. I can attest to that a little bit just because, you know, I do work on a team with the podcast that I do. And like, I'm in charge of doing the editing for the podcast, as well as I'm the more technical savvy of the group. And so, like, I also, for the most part, maintain the website. And, you know, I joke with people when I talk to them, but I tell them, I'm like, you know, this influencer stuff is a lot of work. There are times that I have to pretty much tell myself to put my phone down and actually look up at the sky and, you know, enjoy that it's a beautiful day outside. But, you know, even with interactions with other people, like, I'm constantly in my phone or involved, or, and I mean that, you know, that tells you that you're passionate about it. But again, I actually started going to, there's a place in Greenville called Drift. It's a spa, and they actually have a deprivation float tank. So I've started doing that.
Welcome, Julian. Welcome, Daniel. Welcome, everybody who's watching on Instagram, and our one person who's watching on Facebook. Come on, Facebook, pick up the slack.
You know, Facebook is so dated.
But Facebook, this stuff lives in perpetuity. So
yeah, that's true. So yeah, I started doing the deprivation thing, and so that's kind of my break from everything that's going on, and it's life-changing almost, just because I have a moment, I have an hour that feels like longer than that, even though it feels short. But having that chance to actually just unplug and disconnect, and it's just you, and almost with the tank, it's almost like it's a floating, like your floating brain almost. And so you get in touch with yourself, and you get your thoughts and things of that nature, which is your grandma's watching on Facebook.
I mean, I know her photos over here, but I didn't think that it was visible on Facebook. Is it? No way.
No,
it's not. Quit lying to me, Daniel.
So yeah, like just doing things, and like I heard some of the podcasts from, what was it, Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday. Is that, you know, doing things for yourself is, I mean, that's the best thing that you could ever do, because I feel like, you know, and like I said, again, everybody kind of deals with it, but I feel like a lot of people that are super givers fight with it a lot harder than, say, people that are very, and maybe they have already reached that point to where they're just like, okay, I'm going to worry about me, and then you guys do whatever you want to do. But once I got to that point of learning to appreciate myself, again, that helped with going to see a counselor and things of that nature. But, you know, for me now, you know, saying it sounds bad, but, and if I'm going off on a tangent, I apologize.
Hey, like I said, we've got at least we got another 34 minutes, so let's roll. That's why this conversation is set to be a conversation.
Yeah. And so I learned to say no, because I was almost stretching myself so thin that I, again, was just drained. Like, and this, you know, it sounds negative to say, and it's not intended that way, but you have people in your life that basically, unbeknownst to them, drain you of your energy. And when that energy is drained, you have no fight at all. And like I said, that goes back to the days where I'm just like, I'm just exhausted. Like, I'm just tired. I just want to be by myself, and that's it, and recharge. Right. And then you have people that don't pull that much energy from you, that you can just kind of be yourself. But once you learn, like I said, saying no, not stretching yourself so thin, knowing that your plate's already full. And that was a thing that I fought with, because I'm a person that likes to stay busy. So it's a blessing and a curse, because I want to stay busy, but then I'm just like, man, I just love to breathe for a second.
Right.
And so that's really how I feel about dealing with, per se, my mental health, is, like I said, taking out time for me. And that may involve somebody else, that may not involve anybody. Like, a year ago, I got a dog. Best thing I could have ever done. You know,
that's an adorable dog too.
Thanks. He is mad because all his squeaky toys are up right now, but he knows when Dad sits in front of a big screen that means quiet time. But yeah, so that was one of the best things that I can do. So, like, you know, I'll go hiking with just him, and even though I'm still technically not by myself, I am by myself, because obviously he's not going to sit there and have a conversation with me. If he did, I would be rich, but
no, you wouldn't, because you would keep it to yourself.
You're right, because I wouldn't want to share them. So having those moments of self, it's funny, because it's like you can be afraid to be by yourself because you don't know what's going on. Then you get to a point where you love being by yourself because you do know what's going on. It's a transition that happens once you kind of get a hold of it.
Right. So I want to pose a question to those of you guys or those of you all who are watching right now. So we're deep in this conversation around mental health and kind of what we do in those moments to allow ourselves to breathe, because we're in this era of, especially if you're an entrepreneur, right? Excuse me. We have all of these people coming down at us saying we have to work 12 to 18 hours a day, right? Or we need to be posting this type of content. We need to be doing this. Like, when I heard Vaynerchuk tell me that I needed to post 20 to 30 times a day on Instagram stories, I thought he was a fucking dumbass. But I get it. Yeah. He needs to post 20 to 30 times a day. I don't. So it's allowing yourself in those moments or finding your way to get those moments to where you can breathe. Mm-hmm. I mean, earlier this week I started putting in meditation, like thoughtful, like intentional meditation into my world, and it's been great so far.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come without a little bit of, oh, hey, I need to be working right now.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
And that's one thing, like I said, with the deprivation tank and they tell you, like, write down your to-dos before you go in. That way it's as much as out of your mind as you possibly can consider it. Breathing.
What the fuck is that? Thanks, Daniel. By the way, for those of you guys who are watching on Instagram, Daniel runs this really amazing podcast that I was blessed to be on a couple weeks ago. That's called the Unframe of Mind podcast. Check it out. He'll be one of my guests on this conversation coming up very, very soon.
Sweet. I'm gonna come in and troll him. So,
and I love his tagline because it's brilliant and it resonates really with this topic of conversation because it's called Uncomfortable Conversations Without a Condom. It makes sense. Like, I get it.
So yeah, and one of the books that I started reading is, and I need to finish it. I'm terrible, but it's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And that book, I mean, Mark, who wrote it, is a genius with it, and it basically is saying, you know, you're gonna fail, you're gonna have these issues, worrying about what other people think and all this stuff. It's like, don't care. Like, literally, it's you in this world. I mean, people are supporting roles in your life and they come and they go and they may be there forever, they may not. And realizing that, again, it's your fight to fight. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's you. You know, and when it comes to like listening to other people and understanding what's going on, obviously empathizing with them and understanding their situation, but learning how to also compartmentalize that helps, because then it's not, okay, I gotta solve their issue. It's like, I heard their issue and I understand what's going on. And if they ask for a solution, then the solution, then there it is. And then you can go on about what you're doing. And it's not being that you don't care. It's just saying, hey, I heard you. I know what's going on. Do you want my opinion or do you want my suggestions? If you don't, then obviously I'm just closing that door and pushing it out. If you do, then obviously we can sit here and have a conversation about what you can do better or what can help you in your solution from my perspective. Because like you said, I mean, it's an area of perception, because say I might say I'm worried about something and somebody's like, you know, that's not a big deal. And you're just like, how do you not know that it's not a big deal? Especially if that person, you're not talking to that person constantly. Nobody's in your head.
Only you.
Only you. And so they can only offer suggestions that either come from experience or they're just making a really good guess. Hey, Whiskey Doctor. And Devin. Devin's my co-host, one of my teammates for my podcast. Nice. I think Whiskey Doctor.
I want to be on that show because that show sounds like a fun one.
Yeah, it is fun. We'll definitely get you in there somehow.
Nice.
I think Whiskey Doctor is a psychologist, psychiatrist, something with the mind.
And that's the thing. Like, I have to say this in every video, because every video we have new people that show up because of the various guests that I have on. I am not a medical professional. I don't claim to be one. I'm not here to give advice. We're just here to have an open conversation around mental health and how important it is that we actually have conversations around it. So, I want to give that disclaimer every couple of minutes just because I feel it necessary to do so.
Because my form of medication may not be great for everyone.
Mine either.
If the people that are listening know my podcast, obviously they know I drink sometimes. But anyways, but yeah, just really finding out what works for you is the key. And it may be counseling, it may be medication, it may be a combination. It may just be like, all right, well, I need to meditate, or I need to go on a hike every weekend regardless of
I
the weather.
wish. It's too damn cold up here in the north to do that.
Sorry, man. I'm right near Asheville, and there are waterfalls galore down here.
Well,
You just can sit by a waterfall and just unplug. Well, you really have no choice but to unplug because you don't have a cell phone signal. So you're completely – only thing you can use your phone for is to take pictures, really.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, so finding out what works for you, and is it getting a support animal or a peacock or whatever, getting some form of
Daniel, stop trolling. Those of you guys who are not watching this on Instagram, apparently we need to be watching this on Instagram because this is where all the fun shit happens.
Hey, we have a comment. Are you in Black Mountain? I am not in Black Mountain. I'm in Spartanburg, but I'm close.
And then we got Daniel calling me a wuss over here and then laughing. Hey, I ran a 5K. Okay, so let's just clarify this real quick to put an end to the troll. So February 25th, I think it was that last Saturday in February. I ran a 5K in 29-degree weather and actually beat my prior year's time by 8 minutes. So who's a wuss now? just saying.
He digresses.
I had to call him out.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, just finding what works, and I think that'll help. And, again, like my buddy Classic Styles, who got me involved in this, he's pretty much
still hasn't. You appeared before he did, which I find.
He said he needs to hit you up, so he's already he knows, but he's studying for another exam for his job and profession. So
put an end to the troll.
Yeah, he
love you, Daniel.
He said he'll hit you up, so I'll get on to him about it. But normally when he starts studying, he kind of just disappears.
Right. Understandable.
But yeah, so he's pretty much like a brother. Like we've had fallen outs, but we constantly just always come back. And he was one that I talked to about it, and he was just saying, being African American in any race, I mean, it's still an issue, but definitely, like, I can only speak obviously for mine, and saying that it's really, really seen as like a negative stigma to have a mental health issue as an African American in society.
That's been a conversation that I've had a lot. I mean, obviously not in this video series, but in general, for that reason, because it is got a lot of stigma around it.
Yeah. And so being able to just start with that, and then just saying, you know what, this is me. I mean, being like a single guy and dealing with things, you learn, like, I don't go out and say, yeah, I suffer from, or I deal with depression and anxiety, but simple things like, hey, I like to drink whiskey, learning just be yourself and be okay and say, this is who I am. It takes a massive amount of weight off of your shoulders when you're not trying to hide yourself in plain sight. I mean, that's pretty much what you're doing when you're not claiming to have an issue, or not claiming to deal with extreme cases of anxiety or depression, or stress. And that was one thing. Actually, it's funny. My architecture professor, when I was in undergrad, I would be in studio working, and he could kind of tell that I was stressed out. And it would be because I had like a calculus exam or a physics exam or something that's just ungodly hard, depending on who you are. But for me, calculus is not my friend.
Calculus is not many people's friends.
And
so
I never really use it.
We need to.
But, he would tell me, he's like, look, architecture can wait. Go take you a nap. Go study for your exam. Studio will be here when you get back. But, I mean, that was a simple life lesson that in my professional career, I sometimes use PTO or using sick days to just take a day off.
A mental health day.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is like companies obviously is becoming obviously with all of these mass shootings and or not all of these, but these mass shootings and these things that are going on, you know,
All of the
mental
things,
health.
all of them that have happened.
Yeah, mental health is becoming, it's brought up. Now, maybe it's not dealt with and maybe swept under the rug until something else happens, but it's starting to be more and more apparent and out there in the media because I think I recently heard that their pediatricians and family physicians are starting to actually do or looking at doing mental health assessments along with like physicals for children now.
Brilliant.
And I mean, it's literally very easy. Like I have a niece who feels like the black sheep, and like she, you know, I don't know exactly 100% what my sister will be doing, but you know, we've talked about obviously going to counseling. But and the thing is, like, it's not. There's nothing wrong with it, but I can speak from experience that it's almost like until you really know what's going on, you are almost in a state of denial, even if you're sitting in a psychiatrist's office. Because I know battery, I hate my iPhone. I swear the battery just like dies. Anyways, but yeah, like you basically are in a state of denial, even if you're sitting in front of that psychiatrist. Because I mean, we had free psychiatrists and psychology stuff from Clemson. And don't fall phone, just hang out. They make it very hard to they make a broadcast with an iPhone because everything's on the bottom.
Oh, if only I've got mine on a tripod, so I'm able to have mine.
Yeah, I need to get one of those apparently. Thanks. But yeah, so when I was going to these appointments at Clemson, I was almost still denying it. Like I knew I had an issue, but I didn't know what it was. So I'm going to this saying, okay, if I go to this, eventually I'll figure it out. And here I am 10 years later, finally at a point where I'm just like, oh, now I know what's going on. You know, now I can take care of it. Now I can go talk to somebody about it because I pinpointed it. So not saying that taking a child to a physician or somebody to have a mental health assessment or having a counselor, children obviously are, depending on who they are, they're a lot less accepting of what's going on with them until you get older and you're kind of left to deal with it yourself. So just, I guess, you know, one thing would be figuring out a way to help children, I guess, know, hey, Taylor, and Ryan, helping children know that it's okay. And that's, again, that social stigma of mental health and making it not something that makes you seem as an outcast, but actually just a part of society. Because again, what people don't claim and people that say, well, I don't have anything wrong, it's just like, you're lying. Because we're human. We're not perfect. You're dealing with something. It may not be something you want to share with me, and I'm okay with that. But saying that you don't have any issues is, I mean,
is an admittance of an issue right there.
Yeah.
Right. Because, I mean, and you kind of brought it back to the whole philosophy behind this open heart collective, behind this, because originally, and this is going to be kind of a resounding topic for, I think, every new guest, but like the reason why I started this video series was actually inspired by what I tried to do back in like 2013 with this program or this online interactive book called The Open Heart Collective. And the premise of the book was, my story may not resonate with you or help change your world, but your story will help change somebody else's world. Mm-hmm. So that's why these videos are all about you guys and really sharing your story. And maybe one of these days I'll just do a live video myself, do a broadcast where I openly give my story. But you hit a lot of things right on the head with that, and I want to thank you for that. I actually dealt with therapy when my first wife and I were going through our divorce, and I was very against it. Mm-hmm. I needed it, but I was very against it, and this is why I felt like I was against it. because everything that I was saying and having, I was self-diagnosing and self-analyzing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, why am I paying you $50 to $60 or 50 to 75 or whatever it was an hour or more for you to tell me what I already know, rather than me just finding a way to adapt and overcome from what I already know is an issue. So this is where self-awareness is key.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, and this is a challenge to everybody watching this, is like, become and know how to become self-aware. If you haven't figured it out already, spend the time that is necessary to figure it out. Because because when you're able to figure that out, everything becomes easier. Right? Like, the rough days become a little bit less rough. The great days become even better. Like, it balances out the scales because you understand your true self.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too is, like you're saying, like, why am I going to pay somebody to tell me what I already know is going on? Well, you've been through this. Like, you've been through it with yourself, and obviously you still haven't figured it out. So sometimes having that expert, per se, help you out is knowing when to ask for help.
Right.
You know, like I said, because if you don't feel like you need it, you know, you won't receive it as well as you will once you realize you need help.
Bingo.
And I mean, that stems from even your parents. When your parents tell you to do stuff, and you're just like, why do I need to do that? Right. And you get older, and you're just like, oh, got it. You know, and I know I relate back to the deprivation chamber a lot, but when I was in there the first time, my brain wouldn't shut off, and I'm just like, should I get out? It's not helping. You know, I've been here for, I feel like, what's been 2 hours, and once I got comfortable, it was just a completely different thing. And that's how I feel dealing with mental health is. It's just, got an issue, don't know what to do with it. I'm going to try to do this on my own. And some people can, but a lot of us just can't. And so, like I said, just being able and being open for help. Thanks, Traveler.
Like, and that's what this is. That's what this community that we're building here is. Because, like I said, my story might not connect with somebody here, but your story is going to resonate with somebody.
Yeah.
And if mine doesn't connect with you, or you're not able to pull something from my story to make your life better, or to change your mindset around something, like, you can help somebody else. And then in turn, that's going to help you. And it's an amazing thing when that happens, because I remember one of my first experiences with a mental health circumstance that was not my own. Because, I mean, to scratch the surface a little bit, I struggled with it for about 8 years.
Okay.
And I mean, sincerely struggled with it. Many of the time frame I don't remember, just because of my own, oh God, I'm flipping the camera around here. All right, let's flip it back to me. There we go. I was trying to wave at everybody. Yeah, I'm just gonna wave. And I mean, I remember those days when it was just like, I'm done. And I would be and sit in a dark room, and I'd have my angsty teenager music on, and I'd write the note, and then I'd get pissed off at myself, and I'd crumple the note up and throw it away and walk out of the room. But, like, there are many people who don't walk out of the room. Because at that moment, because I felt like I didn't have anybody I could go to.
Yeah.
And in other circumstances that I've been privy to, I've had to be that for somebody else. Like, I think this came up when I was talking to Joel, Empower Good. For those of you guys who aren't checking out his podcast, make sure to do so.
He's on here.
He's giving us some love right now.
Yeah.
I had this experience several years ago. It was February, and for those of you guys who don't know, February in Northern Illinois is brutal. Typically a lot of snow, typically a lot of cold. Um, to the point where you really wouldn't want to like walk outside, like especially not at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night in a
Yeah.
hoodie, shorts, and flip flops. Thong sandals for you guys who are watching this from overseas. Because I get my buddy from Australia would be like, "What the hell is a flip flop?" So I have to anyways. And I'd have to be that person to talk. I was that person to spend 5 hours outside talking this person off the ledge because I got the text message that was breaking me because it was like, I can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I'm done. And these are people who had, this particular person was somebody who had a far more traumatic life than I did. And I thought my life was rough. Like,
Yeah.
I was taking the blades to my wrists, and my favorite place when I was cutting was the bottom of my feet because nobody could tell. But like, I would do that, but then I would hear their stories, and I'm like, why the hell would I ever do that? Because like mine was a drop in the bucket by comparison.
Yeah.
But everybody handles it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the key takeaway from this is find your why. Find the reason why you get up in the morning. Find the reason why you have to fight through the bad days. Because I mean, what is it statistical? The probability is that 7 out of every 10 years are going to be bad years, especially when you like reference back to the stock market. When I was in that world, they were like, yes, 30% of the time it's going to be good, 70% of the time it's going to be bad. Like, not bad, just a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So be willing and accepting to take that loss. But don't lose yourself in the process of taking that loss.
Exactly. It's almost like just getting back into the fire and strengthening for that 30% that is good. And almost, in a way, it's almost like don't even look at it that way,
Right.
And me and my buddy Junior, we were talking last night, and we're, especially the millennials, we're a society we're a society in general, but obviously, we're a society that in general looks for gratification, and
especially instant gratification.
Instant gratification, yeah. I mean, I want it now. If I order this off of Amazon, it better be at my door when I hit pay for it.
Right, like the drone comes by.
Yeah. The drone knew I was buying it, and they were just like, we're just going to go ahead and send it, So that's another thing that I'm trying to figure out where I was going with this. But that's another thing that we deal with is the instant gratification. And so, that's where. Setting these small goals, even if you're in a time of, say, the bad times, setting small goals that help that bad time feel better.
Right.
Instead of, that was weird, iPhone. Instead of, per se, saying, I want to lose 100 pounds, saying, okay, well, and they do this on the apps. It's like, say, I want to lose 1 pound a week. Those small attainable goals. Instead of doing a New Year's resolution, maybe have a larger one.
Like,
but
I want to do this week.
Yeah, do a week, do a day, do 3 days, every other week. I mean, just give yourself smaller obtainable goals that you're not looking at saying, and I mean, this translates into
business,
into, I can't remember the guy's name that talks about debt, but even him and his method is attack small things, because those small things build up to larger things. It's like playing with Legos. I mean, one brick alone is nothing, but then obviously with multiple bricks, it's a big wall. You can build a wall. Right. And so those things, you see that goal, and it just kind of gives you that dopamine that you need to help you feel better in general. And so that's another thing too. It's just, if you're going through a bad time, you have things that keep going and set small goals that you can see that, Rico, you will be able to rewatch this. So it's okay.
And for those of you guys who miss it, this broadcast is also going on my Facebook page, And the link for that Facebook page is inside my profile. So go to my profile, hit that link, and then find my Facebook page. And this video will be broadcast on. There's broadcasting there right now, but will remain there and will also be available on my YouTube channel tomorrow.
Yeah. So yeah, set those small goals, and they'll help you tremendously just because it gives you a good feeling, even if you're going through a dark time.
Right. And this is one last little piece that I want to resonate out before we say, where can everybody find you? Find a way to let it go. Right? Like, for me, I built up so much like anxiety and stress because running 2 companies, having 2 kids, having a wife, like having responsibilities is stressful. Like, especially when the businesses aren't making enough money and you're having to work and side hustles in order to build your main hustle. Like, find a way to let it go every day. Yeah. So the way that I do this, again, this is going to kind of sound like a shameless plug, but the way that I do this is that I vlog. The vlog for me originally started as kind of like a, hey, I've got to show my journey, but now it's a, hey, I've got it. This is my journal. Do you want to read it?
Yeah.
And because it becomes a cathartic release for me, because I'm able to, even if it doesn't make it into the final cut, I'm still getting it out. Like, I had a shit day, like I'm pissed off, like, but when I go back and I watch it and I edit it, that's my moment to review. And I'm able to say, okay, like, I got it out, it's said, it's recorded, but the rest of the world doesn't need to see this. But there are times where I do show it and I do say, okay, well, this is a negative circumstance, but find a way to let it go. If you're having a bad day, find a way to a cathartic release for it, because don't let it carry into the next. So
I'm making faces because my dog decides to eat dinner right
now. So I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's joined us on Instagram as well as on Facebook. Yes. As these episodes continue to grow and as the show continues to grow, I anticipate we're going to see more guests coming in. I hope that not only more guests, but more people watching. But again, if you guys need help, if you guys are struggling or you know someone is struggling, be a human, be a really amazing human and connect with them. And if you need help, I'm going to offer my service. Like, DM me on Instagram, message me on Facebook, tweet at me saying you need to talk. Hell, a little trick in my profile on Instagram is my phone number. That rings the cell phone that I'm talking to you guys through on Instagram right now. Call me. Or reach out to Broderick. Reach out to anybody who can help. But I'm going to let with the last minute 55 that we have on Instagram here. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, and I say this all the time, so it sounds premeditated, but you can find me on Instagram with Brodie on Instagram, as well as I help manage my team's Instagram page, which is the Empty Glass Resistance on Instagram. And we do have a website that is the Empty Glass Resistance, and you can actually send us an email through that. So if you want to reach me, like you said, DM.
And it's the Empty Glass Resistance on Facebook as well, right?
Yeah, Empty Glass Resistance on Facebook as well. So we're kind of everywhere. But yeah, I mean, you're not having to deal with this alone, and you shouldn't feel that way. And I mean, again, I've dealt with it, and I'm not afraid to see it.
I know you guys have dealt with it.
So just, if you need to talk to somebody, just talk to somebody. Go find an old lady in the park. If you slow down on your food. And Broderick. My dog.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Massive amount of love and appreciation to you. And I'm sure we'll be doing this again sometime very soon. And if there's anything ever I can do for you or your organization, please do not hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, my mission here is to help, add value, and try to do really cool things with really cool people. And I believe that you are one of those cool people in that world. So
I appreciate it.
But all right, Instagram. We'll see you guys in the next one. All right, Facebook is still running. Cool. So Facebook is still running. Facebook, you were quiet tonight. I'm kind of disappointed. But you guys get to catch it in the replay.
Yes.
So that being said, thank you everybody who's watching this. I will be in the comments the rest of the night. So if you guys do have any comments, any questions for me or for Broderick, don't hesitate to reach out or don't hesitate to leave a comment, to send me a message, and we'll make sure to address it in the future or as soon as we get it. And then tomorrow morning, 10 8, bright and early. I know this is going to be an early one. I'm testing the limits here and what bandwidth I can get at what times and who's going to be watching when. But tomorrow morning, join me again for episode number 4 of the Open Heart Collective. My special guest tomorrow will be none other than the rock star advocate for herself, Suzanne Polinsky. This will be a really compelling conversation because this is exactly what Suze does all the time when it comes to the mindset of musicians and other music industry related entrepreneurs. So I look forward to seeing you guys bright and early then. In the meantime, be happy, have fun, and if you hustle, make sure to hustle your ass off because you only got one shot at this thing. So We'll see you guys in the next one.
Take it easy, guys.